Hey there, mental health warriors. Welcome to Crafting Mental Health. Hey there, mental health warriors. Hi, family, friends, and anybody who's new to this podcast. Welcome to this week's episode. And as you may have seen in the naming of the episode, this episode is What Not to Say. And basically what this episode will be about is more for friends and family of people who are suffering with depression about what they should or shouldn't say when someone is going through a depressive stage. Because sometimes the things that you say might be very, you mean it well, but for a person who has depression, they can take it completely the wrong way, or not the wrong way, just to them it feels different than what it was intended for. So first things first, if you are listening to this podcast on, whichever platform actually you're listening it on, go ahead and hit the follow button so that every week when I post a new episode, you will be notified when it's ready. And if there are special content or things, you will also be notified of those. So go ahead and click the follow button. And if you would like to, you can share this with your friends or your family or anybody who you think might benefit from this podcast or a specific episode. I also have a Facebook group called Crafting Mental Health Podcast. You guys can come find me there. Like I said, just feel free to share this so that for anybody who would benefit from hearing about, the different topics that we talk about. So yeah, like I said, this topic today's episode is about what not to say to people with depression or who is struggling with depression. And, I read that there's a study that was done, and in 2020, 15 million adults in the U.S. Has been diagnosed with clinical depression at some point in their life. So that is like 1 in every 10 people. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of people who are struggling with this in some way, shape, or form. Some people's struggles are worse than others. Some struggle with it for a longer period of time. Some people struggle with the fact that they can't find medication to help them, or, all the treatment options that they are trying is not working for them. You name it. It's a struggle. And for some people, even, you think you might have your treatment plan down, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it flares up again, and for no rhyme or reason. Or, sometimes you can pinpoint what caused a depression episode, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it just happens. And if you listen to my podcast or to my episode last week, I talked about how just my routine being, messed up, how that affected my mental health. And this past week, funny enough, my routine didn't get any better, and a lot of things happened. And I actually ended up having a panic attack one night. I was laying in bed, and I had this strange feeling in my chest, like couldn't breathe, and I wanted to cry, and I ended up crying, and that kind of helped a little bit. And, that episode is actually what brought on, me wanting to talk about, what not to say. Because, you guys, I've talked about my husband being amazing and always helping me the best he can. But he doesn't know what it feels like, what it is that I'm going through. And, when he was asking me questions while I was having the panic attack as to why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and I said, I feel like I'm failing at being a mom. I'm failing at my job. I'm failing at this podcast. And his response was, well, that's ridiculous. You should know that that's not, you're not failing. And in that moment, I wanted to just cry, because I felt, I know that he didn't mean it that way, but to me, it was like, I felt guilty for feeling the way I felt. And, I didn't say anything to him at the time. I told him afterwards when the next day or so, I said, I know you mean well, but in that moment, what you said hurt more than it helped. But what he did do that night that was extremely helpful for me was, we were just laying there and he just kept rubbing my back. And sometimes I'll be so irritated that I'm like, don't touch me. But because I was having a panic attack, him rubbing my back helped me be grounded. So, and I'm telling you guys the story more for family members and friends who has someone struggling with mental health. Sometimes just being there, holding their hand while they're going through something may be all that they need in that moment. They need to cry. They need to just sit there with you. That might be the one thing that they need. They don't need you to fix it. They know that sometimes it cannot be fixed. All they need is someone to be there so that they don't feel so alone in that moment. So I was doing a little research on, things, what not to say, or, how you can say it in a different way for your point to come across, because I'm sure every person who's saying something to someone who's struggling with depression, they mean well. It's not, they don't mean to be hurtful or malicious or anything like that. They truly mean well. But for us with depression, our brains just operate differently, and something that someone says, we will immediately take it a different way. And yes, that's stuff that we can work on. But, in that moment, sometimes, having someone to talk to that has empathy for us, that is what is helpful. And, something that I've been told in the past is, be grateful for what you have. And, yes, this is true. And it might help in some instances, but for most of people who's struggling with depression, but when you say this sentence to them, like, be grateful for what you have, that will make them feel a sense of guilt, that they're not grateful for what they have. And that is the reason why they're depressed, because they're not grateful. And then they'll internalize it and say, well, that means I'm feeling this way. It's my fault that I'm feeling this way. So now we're self-blaming on top of being depressed. And, we are, people with depression already feel like they are weak because they feeling this way and they feeling worthless. And by telling them to be grateful for what they have, that just makes it more, that just triggers something in a person with depression to feel guilty and to feel that what they're doing, them fighting every day, is not good enough. And, instead of saying things like, you should be grateful, instead you can say things like, your feelings are valid and I hear what you're saying and I'm here to listen to what you are going through. And that's all that we want. We want someone to be there, because when you have depression, you feel so alone and isolated and feel like nobody understands what you're going through. So you just want someone to understand. Another thing that people do say is like, you don't need medication. I've managed my depression without medication. And, I think it's very dangerous to, like, when I saw this sentence, it basically refers to pill shaming, and basically telling people that, there's other ways to heal instead of taking medication. And in some cases that might be true, but what is working for you might not work for somebody else. Therefore, you can't tell someone else like, well, what you're doing is wrong. You need to do it this way. You need to do X, Y, and Z, because at the end of the day, what works for you is not going to work for me. And in my instance, what I've learned is that medication is helping me tremendously. Not having medication for me is not a good thing. And, and quite honestly, it is very common to need medication and to use medication. And you shouldn't feel ashamed to be on medication for your depression. Does a cancer patient feel shame for being on medication for their cancer treatment? Does somebody with diabetes feel ashamed for being on insulin? No. People with depression may need medication, or people with mental health may need medication. And, it just like cancer and diabetes, it is a legitimate mental condition or disease that we're struggling with, a disorder that we're struggling with. And, if it is okay for people with diabetes or cancer or heart disease or whatever to be on medication to keep them alive, why should it be any other way for people with depression to take medication? So, instead of telling people not to take medication, rather tell them something or ask the question like, do you feel that you are getting the help and treatment that you need from your care team or support team, your doctors? Try and rather be there for the person with depression. Try and be there to understand what they're going through and to help them navigate the mental or the insurance companies and medical system in any country for that matter. It can sometimes be hard. Some people can struggle because they don't have insurance, or their insurance don't pay for their medication, or their insurance don't pay for their treatments that they need. Some insurance don't pay for therapy. And, so instead of saying that you don't need medication, rather ask them how you can help them navigate the insurance companies, or how you can help them navigate the medical health, in the country that you're in, the medical health system. How can you help them? This way the person with depression will not feel like they're fighting this battle alone, and that they have someone to support them, and they have someone that they can lean on, and that they don't feel like a burden. Because a lot of times when we have depression, we feel like we're a burden to other people, and that's the last thing that you want someone to feel. Another thing people tend to say is, I'm not going to walk around eggshells with you, or I'm not going to walk on eggshells around you, or every time I talk to you, I feel like I need to walk on eggshells because I don't know how you're going to react. So first of all, that puts someone with depression in guilt mode. They totally feel guilty. They feel like, they're a burden to everybody, that, everybody has to watch out because, they're going to have a, explosion, or they're going to, whatever your reaction is. So that makes you feel alone and isolated. So, and I understand why people say that I'm not going to walk around eggshells with you. And it's simply because, sometimes you don't know what to say to someone who is suffering from depression, or who is in a depressive episode. You don't know. And you know what? Sometimes it is okay not to say anything. Sometimes it's okay just to sit there with that person and to say, I am here. I'm here to listen to whatever it is that you want to share with me, whatever it is that you're comfortable sharing. I am here to listen. I'm here to help you however you want me to help you. Or you can even ask, like, what can I do to help you? What do you think will make you feel better? The person might not even know, but the fact that you're asking the question makes it okay for them to not know the answer, because that means because don't know the answer, they don't know the answer, but you can figure it out together. So it makes the person with depression feel that they are not alone. So, instead of saying like, I'm not going to walk around eggshells with you, you can rather say something about, if you're comfortable with talking about it, I'm here to listen. I would like to understand as much as I can about what it is that you're going through. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to understand everything. Unless you've walked this path of depression, you're not going to understand. And even myself, who suffers with depression, I might not understand my friend who has depression, what she's going through. Her depression is different than mine. So what she's going through is different than mine. And again, when I'm listening to what she's going through, I can't tell her, well, you need to do this or you need to do that. I need to tell her the same things that I would want to hear when I'm going through an episode. And I think one of the best things that you can say to someone when they're going through depression or having a depressive episode is, just to say that it will get better. This is just a moment, and it will get better, and it will be okay. And, I've told my husband, because he's asked me several times, like, I don't know what to do when you feel like this. I don't know what to do, and it scares me, and I want to help you, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. So I've realized that I have to teach him what to say. He's not going to know. I have to train him. Well, not train him. I have to teach him. And I've learned that, if I just remind him, like, when I do feel a certain way, just hold me and tell me it's going to be okay. Because in that moment, I just need someone to hold me and that I don't feel so alone. And on Friday after work, this past Friday, I had a total meltdown. It was a rough week, you guys. And I ended up getting home and I was frustrated and I was kind of throwing things around in the kitchen. And, my husband was like, are you okay? And I'm like, do I sound like I'm okay? And I just kind of went off on him. And then that turned into me crying, and he was like, and he just came over and he just held me, and I just bawled my eyes out. And, my poor dog, she obviously felt that, I needed some puppy love, and I ended up sitting on the floor. She came and licked my face and sat on top of me, which of course that's a huge help. And then the sweetest thing that my husband could do is he came and sat down on the floor next to me. And we just sat there for a good 30 minutes and we just talked, and that was huge to me in that moment. That is what I needed. Just for him to be there in that moment to make me not feel so alone. And you guys, I'm actually sitting here, I want to start crying because how much that meant to me. And and I'm sharing this with you guys so that you can understand that, one, what you are going through, you are not alone. And then two, you can help someone that is struggling with depression. You just need to come at it from a different way. The way you've been doing it may not have been the right way. And you might say something wrong. And hell, we all make mistakes. And that's okay. And, but if you realize that saying it this way is not the right way, then find a different way to say it. And like I said, sometimes just being there with that person and not saying anything at all is all you need. And, it's, there's so many more other things that I've read up about what not to say. The next one that I saw was, it said, but you were doing so well before, and questioning somebody who is going through an episode. And, guys, living with depression is an up and down. You might be good today and then not good tomorrow. And that is just how it is. And, having people around you that understands that when you're having an off day or a bad day, that, it's not going to last forever, and that they are understanding that, maybe tomorrow or next week you will feel a little better again, but just to let them know during those times, like, you know what, I am here. And, instead of saying that thing like you were doing so well before, maybe you can ask your friend or loved one who's suffering from depression and say, hey, what are the signs that I can help, that I can look out for to know when you are spiraling or when you are going into a depression mode? Because sometimes we don't even realize it. We just wake up one day and you're like, oh, dang, yep, okay, this is where we are. We didn't even notice that we're sliding into depression, and maybe a family member could have noticed it before, and they could have said something. And so you can ask them, like, what are the signs? What is your signs? And when I notice it, what can I do to help you feel better? What can I do to make you feel better? Is there something I can say? So when a person with depression is feeling okay, that's when you want to have these conversations with them so that that when it gets bad, you know what to do. You know how to help them through that moment. Another thing people have said to me in the past is like, "I'll remember that it could have been so much worse." Well, yeah, I know. But you know what? To me, right now, this moment feels like the worst moment of my life. And if you tell someone with depression that it could be worse, what you're actually saying is that their feelings don't matter and you're minimizing what they're feeling. So now, it will basically make that person shut down and not share anything with you anymore because they don't feel safe, because they feel like you're judging. So, and I know that sentence is meant well. I've said it to people in the past, not realizing how it may affect people, but saying that to someone, and sometimes, unfortunately it could help. I mean, not unfortunately, but fortunately it could help, but in some instances it may not, and it might make things worse. So what you can say to someone instead of it could have been worse is you can rather say, what you are going through is real, and and just listen, and ask them, say what are you going through is real, and what can I do to help. Don't minimize what they're going through, because in the moment for them, it is real as real can get. And by making them feel worse about it, it's not helping. The next thing that people sometimes say is you should or you shouldn't do this, you should do that, even though that again is meant in a positive way, or it's meant in to help, but sometimes that can be perceived that what I have tried and done is not good enough, or sometimes the suggestions that someone is giving you, like try essential oils or try a better diet or try a different lifestyle, all of these things, you may have tried those things and it just didn't work for you. You may have tried these things and it made things worse for you. I don't know. But that's the thing, and instead of saying to someone, you should do this or you shouldn't do that, rather say things like, what, I would like to spend some time with you. When can we hang out? Again, making that person feel that they are not alone and that they are not going through this by themselves. And a lot of times when someone is in a depressive episode or being depressed, they might say, you know what, no, I don't want to hang out. I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. Don't take that personal. They just really, for them, it is extremely hard to get up and get out. What you could do is say, hey, do you want to go for a walk with me? Just let's go to the store, or, something just to, try and get them out of the house. But if they don't force them, because otherwise you're going to make them feel worse. You can just go there and be with them and say, hey, I'm here. I'm here to listen. I'm here if you need to talk. I'm here. One of the things that I read that said, what you can ask someone that's going through depression is like, hey, can I come over and visit? And that is a great idea. That's something great. But for me, if someone were to ask me that would shoot my anxiety through the roof, because now, I've been going through depression for a while. My house is a mess. First thing I'm thinking about, I was like, oh snap, someone's going to come over to my house. They're going to see this house looking like a mess. What are they going to think? That's what happens to me. But to somebody else, having you come over when they feel like that is what they need. So that's what I'm saying. Every person is different, and I think for me, if a friend would say to me like, hey, can I come over and visit? And I don't give two hoots about what your house looks like. My house is a mess too. That would immediately calm my anxiety down, because that tells me that they know me. They know my anxiety and what's the things that bother me. And they are willing to look past my mistakes or past in my mind, what's my failures. They'll look past that and they will just come there and be there with me, while I'm going through whatever it is I'm going through. That is what I need. And like I said, your friend, your loved one might need something different. And that is why it takes time. You would have to invest time in that person and be there with them to understand what you can do to help. And they can help you. You just need to ask. Ask them, what can I do to help? What can I do to make you feel better? And they might say, I don't know. I don't know. And for right now, I just want to sit here. Then you sit there with them. Don't try and fix it, because sometimes it's not fixable. Sometimes what they're feeling to a rational mind, it's not rational. It's like, you're being silly. But for that person in that moment, those feelings are legit. You cannot minimize it. What they're feeling is real, and it hurts and it sucks. And that's why just sitting there with them, that would be huge. Okay, so to recap, things that you don't want to say. You don't want to blame them. You don't want to tell them that they need to try harder. You don't want to dismiss their feelings or their mood or minimize it or, basically make them feel like their feelings are not valid. You don't want to say things like you need to be more grateful, or you should do this, or you should do that. You don't want to say things like, oh, it could get worse. You don't want to try and control them. Don't do that. And you don't want to tell them to cheer up. That's another one, like just cheer up. Those things are not going to work. What will work, what definitely will work, is if you say things like, you will not always feel this way and things will get better. I have a friend of mine that when I have my depressive episodes, I will tell her, and she sends me this video clip of a woman that sings this little song that says, something to the effect of, the mind or the voice in your head is just little, excuse my language, the voice in your head is a little bitch and she's a liar and she don't know what she's talking about. So when my friend sends me this little snippet, it makes me laugh, and it makes me realize, like, yes, there's a voice in my head and she lies to me, and I have to remember that. Sometimes it's hard. I don't always remember it, but for my friend to send me that gives me hope. To say that it will not always feel this way gives me hope. I actually have a tattoo on my arm that says, this too shall pass. Because, and you guys have heard me say it so many times at the end of my episodes, that this too shall pass. Good moments and bad moments, it will pass. But when you're having these bad moments, if someone tells you like, hey, just remember, it will pass, and remind you of a previous time where you felt bad and you got better and you got through it, it gives you hope, and it reminds you that, yes, this will pass. Something else that you can say is there something that I can do for you? Sometimes you can show it instead of saying it, and say, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. What can I get for you? Or, hey, I'm taking my dog out for a walk and my dog would like some company. Do you want to bring your dog out for a walk with us? Or, hey, I'm going to the movies. Do you want to come with me? Or, I'm going to go to the gym. Would love to have you come with me. Whatever. And if they say no, don't take it personally. Just keep asking, because one day they're gonna like, okay, I'm gonna go. And maybe that one day when they said, okay, if my friend asked me to go today, I'm gonna go, because they have that little bit of hope in them. So if you ask them again, they will go. You never know. So don't stop asking. Okay. And then, something else you can ask them is, what can I do to make you feel better? Can I drive you somewhere? And like I said before, can I come over and visit? Now, to me, that one would shoot my anxiety through the roof. But if you say to me, like, hey, can I come over and visit? I don't care what your house looks like. That would be great. Or even, hey, can I come over and visit and help you clean? I might have some anxiety of that one too, but the idea is you're trying to make me feel like I'm not a failure, and that we're all in this together. And something like when someone with depression has opened up to you, be sure to tell them, like, thank you for trusting me to help to support you. Thank you for trusting me. Because to open up to somebody, oh, it's hard. To tell people what is going on in your mind, it's scary. You guys, when I started this podcast and I shared my story in episode 1 and 2, it was nerve-wracking because you're putting yourself out there. And my husband started listening to my podcast recently, and he told me that he could hear in the very first episode how nervous I was. I'm like, well, yeah, dude, I was telling the world about all the craziness that's going on in my head. But yeah, so basically just coming back to, thank the person that's sharing with you, that they trust you enough to share with you. Something that you can ask them is like, is there anything that that you think that contributes to why you're feeling this way? And funny enough, my therapist actually used this line on me the other day, and I didn't even realize it until I started doing the research. She asked me when I was feeling out of sorts, she asked me, what do I think is making me feel that way? And what this sentence does, it makes the person that's going through the bad time, it makes them come to their own conclusion as to why they're feeling this way. They know their life. They know what's going on with it. So this way you are open to figure out what's going on, but you have someone there that's listening who you can brainstorm with to try and figure out what's going on and why you're feeling this way. So, that's always a good one to ask someone is, can you think of anything that is contributing to why you're feeling this way? And something else you can ask your friend or loved one with depression is like, what time of the day is the hardest for you? Because I have a friend that in the afternoons is the hardest for her, like late afternoon. It used to be in the mornings, and now it's changed to in the afternoons. But what that does, if you ask your friend or loved one what time of the day is the hardest, then that tells you what time of the day to check in with them. Because if they're going through a hard time or that moment in the day it's hard for them, and they get a text message saying, hey, I'm here for you, I'm thinking of you, that can mean the world to someone who is feeling alone, who's feeling isolated, who's feeling like a failure, worthless, all of those things. Having that text message come through, just someone saying, hey, I'm thinking about you, I'm here for you, I'm here to listen, you want to grab a coffee, whatever, it makes you feel less alone. It makes you feel like somebody cares. Because the voices in your head will tell you that nobody cares about you, you're worthless, you're a failure, all of these. And it's constant. You constantly have these thoughts in your head. And it's tiring to fight these thoughts. Believe me, guys, it is exhausting. And that is why I think a lot of people with depression, why they sleep so much, is because they constantly have to fight this battle. And I'm talking about depression today, but it's all mental health problems or things, everybody who has some mental health disorder is fighting it every single day, sometimes every second of every day. And, and like I said, one of the best things you can say to someone going through it is, I'm here for you. I'm here to listen whenever you feel like talking. And then just be there. Just sit there with them and hold their hand. And maybe they don't like being touched, then don't touch them, but just be there. You can sit on your phone, go on your phone, do whatever, but you're being there, and they are not going through this alone. So basically the bottom line is, when you do talk to somebody that's going through depression, is to not blame them and not, don't make them feel guilty. Because believe me, they're doing it on their own. They feel guilty already. So when you're talking to them, have empathy and, trying to understand. And whatever you do, do not tell them that I know what you're going through, because you don't. I love that you want to say that, but you don't. Even if you have had depression in yourself, you don't know 100% what that person is going through. You can say that I can understand what you're going through. I can have some sort of understanding. Don't compare theirs with yours. Don't say, well, when I went through it, this and this and this. In that moment, when that person is in the midst of it, all they need to know is that they are not alone. They don't need to know how someone else is dealing with it better than they are, or, like I said, when you're in the midst of it, you are already feeling all kinds of messed up ways. And like most of all, if you have someone that is there that you know that you can be vulnerable with, that is huge. And also, have someone there that will not rush you to get better. Because sometimes these depressive episodes can last a long time. You might have one good day and then 3 weeks of not good days. And then one good day and then a month of not good days. But having someone that's there to listen is huge. And guys, like I've said before, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Text me, call me, find me on Facebook, but talk to someone. Reach out to someone. You are not alone. You're not going through this alone. You don't have to go through this alone. And it's okay to ask for help. And for friends and family who's there to support us during this, you're not alone too. There are groups like NAMI is one of them. I think it's the National Mental Health something. Just look them up they have support groups weekly, that meets weekly, support groups that is there to help friends and family that have family members that's suffering from depression or any mental health disorder for that matter. Reach out to them. And if you are a caregiver of somebody who's got depression or any mental health disorder, just remember that you are not alone. There are people there to help you and to support you too. And if you need a break, take a break. Okay? You can't, like when the masks in the airplane comes down, like the oxygen mask, they always say, put it on yourself first before you put it on your child, because you got to take care of yourself first. All right, guys? So, I just want to say, guys, my mental warriors, keep fighting, keep at it, fighting the good fight. It's going to be okay. You're going to get through this moment. Just remember, it's just a moment. All right, guys, thank you for listening in this week. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.